Okay, everyone, let's start again. We've still got 2 sessions to go. Just for those of you who have just joined us, it is myself and Salama here in the venue with you today. Salama, as always, is assisting me with answering all your questions. I've put myself up there on the camera just so that you can see who is lecturing this morning. My name is Ina Frost, and then Salama is with me, just answering all your questions. So in our first session then, we looked at learning unit number 6. So if you've maybe joined us a little bit late this morning and you need revision on the 2 inventory systems, then please go and just listen to our recording from our first session. In our second and third sessions, our focus is now going to be fully on learning units 4 and 5. Okay, so just a reminder again, in case, again, you joined us a little bit late this morning, our second semester test then is going to deal with learning units 1 through to 6. Okay, so we start again at learning unit 1 and then we go up until learning unit number 6. Also, save the date so long for us, the 18th of June. That will be the morning for our exam revision session, so you can put that one in your diary so long. Then just a quick disclaimer. Remember, these sessions are purely for revision purposes only. They are not going to take away from the importance of going to class and making sure you're also working at home. Remember then how to slay ACBP5121. Remember, it's a series of building blocks. You must make sure you've got a good foundation so that you can have ultimate success this semester. Otherwise, if you're not sitting with a good foundation in test 1 and test 2, it's going to become difficult for you to be really successful this semester. Yes, our sessions are all being recorded. Let me just double check. Yes, I am recording our session. And yes, the links to the recordings will be shared. Please just, if your lecturer hasn't already told you how these recordings are going to be shared with you, please will you just double check with your lecturer. They will let you know where to find all of our recordings that you can then use again. Please, if you can also just make sure you're signing our attendance register. I think Salama has, oh yes, I see she's just posted it again. So please just click on the link in the Q&As and then assign the attendance register. Please optimize the Q&As. If you do have specific questions, maybe a question that you brought with you this morning, or as we go through the slides, if there's something here that you want us just to go through again, then please optimize those Q&As for us. Okay, so as we said, this test then covers learning units 1 through to 6. Learning units 1 through to 3 then, if you need help on any of those topics, please go and re-watch the recordings from our previous session. Learning unit 6, we've now covered in our last previous session. And so now the next 2, we're going to focus purely on learning units 4 and 5. Okay, everyone ready? Are you ready? Have you got your textbook ready, your A4 paper, pens and calculators? We are going to jump in now with learning units 4 and 5. As always, I always start each learning unit just reminding you of the different learning unit outcomes. Remember, again, these are in your module outline. Available to you under student materials, and this shows you what it is we want you to be able to do at the end of each learning unit. So up on this slide at the moment then is your learning unit 4 and 5 outcomes. So when it comes to learning units 4 and 5, remember you must be able to prepare both your cash and credit journals. You need to be able to post these journals to the general ledger and properly prepare and balance a general ledger account. You need to be able to do a simple trial balance. And then the last thing you need to be able to do is that general ledger reconciliation statement, or with other words, how to fix a trial balance that's not balancing. So those are the 4 major groups of questions that we can ask you from Learning Units 4 and 5. And remember again now, we've just spoken about this in our previous session, but you need to be able to do that for both inventory systems. So that's why in our first session then we spoke specifically about the differences in these two systems, because you need to be able to do all the journals and the general ledger for both of these inventory systems. So remember again, we spoke about this in terms of your little tips and tricks, because remember, we said to be successful in your ACBP career, there's the preparation that you have to do. But then when you're in that test or exam venue, there's also certain things you can do to enhance your ability to do well this semester. And we said the first thing is, of course, to make sure you're sticking to your time. And then the second thing is, look which inventory system is being used in the question. And then once you know the inventory system, then you must see if they're using a markup or a gross margin. And so this is now very important for all your questions that you're going to do in the semester test and in the exam. Okay, I think once again at this point, I'm turning off the camera. I'm leaving you guys. You've seen what I look like. And from here, I'll just carry on just talking over the slides. Okay, so as we said then, tip number one, make sure you're not overspending time on a question. So for example, the question up on the screen now was for 30 marks. So that means, oh dear, I said don't take more than 26 minutes. Sorry, that was a little calculation or typing error on my side. If it's 30 marks, it means you can take 36 minutes for the question, because you've got 1.2 minutes per mark. So don't overspend time on a single question, because remember then it'll either mean you have to rush later questions, or you have to end up leaving out questions. And of course, both of those will have a negative impact on your marks. So please make sure you're managing your time well in the test, so that you spend the right amount of time on each of the questions. If you, of course, have time left at the end, because remember, you've got 60 minutes to earn 50 marks, then you can circle back and redo or perfect some of your earlier questions. Then remember, tip number 2, make sure you see which inventory system is being used. And tip number 3, then, if it's the perpetual inventory system, like in this question, is it a markup or is it a gross margin? Remember, that comes right back there from learning unit number 3. Okay, so first up, we're going to spend some time talking through your cash journals. And we've got 3 cash journals that we can test you on: your cash book receipts, cash book payment, and petty cash journal. And as the names of each 3 of these journals say, these journals are specifically for cash transactions. So cash received by the business, or cash paid out by the business, or petty cash, so those small incidental little cash payments that you make from your petty cash box. Okay, so it is important that you need to know which type of transaction fits with each journal, so that you're recording the correct transactions into each of your journals. We're going to start off quite slow by looking at our cash book receipts. And this one we're going to do in a lot of detail, and then we're going to start picking up the pace a little bit and going a little bit faster when we look at some of the other journals. So the cash book receipts, then we're starting off slow, just so that you can get the hang of it again of what goes where in a journal, and then we're going to start picking up the pace. Remember again, your journals are done monthly. So we do a journal for 1 month's worth of transactions. And this is where we're interested in detail, detail, detail. So if you look now at your screen and you look at that cash book receipts, you can see it's got a lot of columns. So there's a lot of detail that we're looking for in these journals. Once we've got all the detail in the journal, remember, then we move to our general ledger, but then we just move through with the totals. So this is the big place where we're going to record detail, detail, detail. Okay, so the first thing that we always put into our journals then is the number of the source document. So it's important for you to know which source document is matched up with each particular journal. I'm going to show you in my next slide an excellent place where you can go and look to find all that kind of a detail. And also, if you remember in learning unit number 3, we actually showed you pictures and illustrations of what these actual source documents look like and what's the kind of information that goes onto these source documents and when are they being used. So please, again, go back to your learning unit number 3, and then you can actually go and have a look and see exactly what does a cash slip look like? What does a deposit slip look like? What kind of information do we capture on each of these documents? And remember, in terms of source document number, those numbers we must give you in the question. So in the text test or in the exam, we need to give you those document numbers so that you are able to write them into your journal. So this was the page I was referring to. This is this page 107 in your textbook. It's the very first page of learning unit number 4. So if you have your textbook with you right there, quickly open up there on page 107. This is a really excellent summary in your textbook. Okay, so this page 107 then, it gives you the name of every single journal. It gives you the correct abbreviation that should be used for that journal's name. It tells you the types of transactions that must be recorded into the journal, and then the source document that is matched up with each of these journals. So please, I'm sure your lecturer has shown you page 107, but this is really one of those just pure gold in the textbook. So please make sure you go through this summary. It's a really nice summary of all the journals, transactions, and source documents. Then in the cash book receipts, the next column we come to is our column for details. Now, what are we looking for in this column? In this column, you're going to give us the name of the person or the business from whom we received the cash, or otherwise you're just going to say that it was a cash sale. Because typically, if it was a cash sale, we don't typically have names of the people who bought from us on cash. But if you do have a name of a person or of a business in the question, then you're going to write it in this first column for details. Then next one, we have our analysis of receipts column. When do we use this column? We use this column when we receive cash at the business, but before the cash is banked. Okay, so this column, analysis of receipt, is used for cash received at our business premises, but before we've put it into our bank account. And the next key thing to remember here is the amounts we record in this column must include VAT. So in all of our journals, in some of the columns are the amounts including that, and some of them are the amounts excluding that. So you must make sure that for all of your journals, you know clearly which columns must include VAT and which ones are the columns excluding VAT. So analysis of receipts definitely includes VAT. In your bank column then, this is now where we're going to record the amounts that we now physically bank into our bank account. So that will now be into your Capitec account or your First National Bank or your Standard Bank when you go and physically bank the money. Also, this column is also used for direct deposits. So if, say, for example, your debtor pays you and they just deposit the money directly into the bank account, then we use the bank column. The bank column is your main and most important column of this particular journal. Okay, so in a cash book receipts, the bank column is the most important and the main column of this journal, because that's where we reflect the total cash received for the month. And again, the amounts in this column must include VAT. Then our next column in a cash book receipts, we will have an output VAT column, and the output VAT column must represent the 15% VAT. And remember, now you'll have to go back to your Learning Unit 3 knowledge. How did I calculate output VAT if I'm given an amount that either excludes VAT or includes VAT? Remember again, there's a different formula if your amount excludes VAT and if your amount includes VAT. There's two different formulas that we use to calculate the VAT portion. And if you've now forgotten maybe a little bit how to do those VAT calculations, please go back to Learning Unit 3 or watch our previous recording or any of the other resources your lecturer has shared with you, just to make sure you can remember how to do your VAT calculations, because they're also really important for our journals. Then the next column we're talking about is our sales column. So with other words, these are your cash sales, because we're working with a cash book receipts. And in your sales column, we are always going to record the cash sales excluding VAT. And again, I've just put it up there for you on the screen. Two little formulas that you can use to calculate the amount excluding VAT if we give you the amount including VAT. And again, go to Learning Unit number 3 if you're still not sure how to do your VAT calculations. Now, this brings us now to our next important tip for the morning. So this brings us to tip number 6. So now, for every single transaction that we ask you to record in a journal, there's now one more question that you have to ask yourself. So remember, at the start of the question, you've already asked yourself which inventory system is being used. And you've asked yourself, is it a markup or a gross margin? And now for every single transaction, you have to say to yourself, for this transaction, does the amount include VAT? Does the amount exclude VAT? Or is it one of those exempt, zero-rated, or non-allowable items? Okay, so this question, these series of questions, you must ask yourself for every single transaction. So let's have a look here. So this is now a slide or an extract now from a test paper question. Okay, so now we're going to apply tip number 6. So the first thing is we're going to say to ourselves, the question, does the amounts already include VAT? And if you look there on your slide, in what I've highlighted for you, it says the business charges 15% VAT on all its sales. And, oh, sorry, now I think I've gone too quickly. So does the amount include VAT? So we said, yes, the business is charging 15% VAT, so it is a VAT vendor. And you'll see it says all amounts are inclusive of VAT. So as you work through the question, you can assume VAT is included in all the amounts. But look at the comma there. The comma says unless VAT is not applicable. So what we mean by that little part of the sentence, it means if it is a zero-rated item, exempt item, or non-allowable item, then of course VAT is not applicable. Okay, so that's what we mean by that little part of the sentence. But then within an individual transaction, we can also put another bit of information. So here you can see that for this transaction on the 1st of March, we specifically tell you that this 15,000 is excluding VAT. Okay, so you can see we give you a lot of information in a question, and please, you must make sure that you also do what I've done now, that you break it up into all the little bits so that you don't end up thinking an amount includes VAT when it doesn't, or that it excludes VAT. Okay, so remember now again, for every single transaction, you've got to ask yourself the 3 questions. Does the amount include VAT? Does the amount exclude VAT? Or is it one of those exempt, zero-rated, or non-allowable items? Okay, so that is an important question for every single transaction, because as we, for example, see in this transaction, for one particular entry, the amount was actually excluding VAT. Okay, so that's all the kinds of little details you must always be on the lookout for when you are in your test or in your exam. Okay, then our sundry amounts. The sundry columns now is now for transactions that are not cash sales, and it's not cash received from our debtors. And so these are now for all our other cash receipts. And our sundry amounts must also always be without VAT. Okay, so our sundry amounts will also be the amount excluding VAT. Then there's another column in cash book receipts. That's our debtors control column. And this is where we're going to record cash received from debtors. Okay, so when your debtor comes to pay their outstanding account, and then we're going to record those cash received from the debtor in this column. And in this column, then it will be the full amount of cash that you receive from your debtor. Then we come to another details column. So now you can see, if you look at your cash book receipts, there's actually 2 columns with the heading details. Can you see there on your slide? I've colored both of them in green for you, just so that they'll stand out a little bit so that you can see the 2 columns. So our first details column, the one directly after day, remember there we said we're looking for the names of people or of the names of the business or cash sales. Okay, so that's the kind of details I'm looking for in that first column. But then in this next details column, the one under sundry, here I'm looking for a general ledger account name. So I'm looking for something like capital, or interest received on bank balance, or a loan from FNB Bank. So I'm looking for general ledger account names in this second column. And then the last one, and this column is only used if it is perpetual inventory. Because remember, if we're using perpetual inventory, we need to be calculating our cost of sales for every single sale that we make. And so then that's why we have this column added on to our cash book receipts. So to recap quickly then on this slide then just recaps for you quickly what goes into every column, and make sure then you see which ones exclude VAT and which ones will include VAT. Of course, this explanation is also in your textbook. Please optimize your textbooks, students. Those textbooks are just full of valuable and key information. So if you look in learning units 4 and 5, for each of the journals, the textbook actually also gives you a detailed description of what must go into each of the columns of that particular journal. So please make sure for cash book receipts, for example, you will look at pages 112 and 13 of the 2025 version of the textbook, and that will tell you also what to put in each of the columns of a cash book receipts.
Hi, Ina.
Hi,
I have
Salama.
a question from one of the students. She's saying in the CBR, why are some amounts banked together and some aren't? And would I be wrong if I don't bank them together? I think she could be referring to question 4.8, where this, you remember where we were given the deposit slips. So I'm just going to give her feedback to say she needs to read the instructions carefully, where they tell her that if it's banked daily and if it's a direct deposit, then the money goes straight into the bank account and not into the analysis of receipts. Because I think she's confused. She's saying if I, if will I be marked wrong if I don't bank the amounts together? Or maybe she means if she doesn't add them together and records them separately, will she lose marks?
Yes, Salama, you're quite correct in your advice to the students. So remember, students, sometimes in these test or textbook questions, the money isn't banked every single day. So sometimes they only bank the money every second or third day. And so then the cash receipts will stay in analysis of receipts until the day the money is physically put into the bank account. And then they will say, they will tell you in the question, we've now made out a deposit slip and we've put the money in the bank account. So you do need to check your question. The question will either say money is banked daily, which means you will put it into the bank column for every transaction, or it will give you the actual dates on which you have to bank the money. So you will need to just follow the instructions per the question, because if you are banking every day when you shouldn't be, then that will impact some of your marks. So we need to tell you in the question how this business is banking their money, and then you need to look for that and use it in your answer. For example, this one up on the slide, you will see the first couple of transactions were all direct deposits. So we didn't put anything in analysis of receipts because the money went straight into the bank account. And then that last one, that cash sale, that one we did put in analysis of receipts, and then we banked the money as well. So this slide is just trying to give you just some of the typical transactions for a cash book receipts. So the typical transactions would be the owner making a cash contribution to the business. And remember, then there'll be no VAT. In the next one, we've got an example of a loan that was made to the business. The next one, we have number 3. That's where a debtor comes to pay us. And then example number 4 is your typical cash sale. Okay, so that one is your typical cash sale. And you can see, just to make it a bit more interactive, Salama and I have been doing all the work this morning. Now I think it's time for you to do some work. So quickly get out your calculators and see if you can calculate the VAT output amount and the sales amount for that cash sale number 4. So if everyone can quickly take out their calculators, it's time for you to do some work. Can you work out the output VAT and the sales? Okay, hopefully you've all had a chance to, oops. Hopefully you've all had an opportunity now. Oh my goodness, sorry, I've just done something there. Okay, so hopefully you've all had a chance to do your VAT calculations. Let's quickly see if you all got the same amounts that I got. So, oops, sorry, now I've gone too fast. So the output VAT, of course, that will be 1,200 rands. And then the sales amount, that will be the amount excluding any VAT. And for these numbers, then that comes to 8,000. So please remember, it's key that you still need to know how to do your VAT calculations from learning unit number 3 so that you are able to do all of the calculations in your different journals. Our cost of sales, remember in the cost of sales columns, the calculation there will be the amount excluding VAT and the markup or the gross margin. So you are going to use your sales number and then you are going to take out either the markup or the gross margin, depending on the question. Then when you want to double check or cross check yourself in your cash book receipts, we are now going to total our cash book receipts, because now from here, we are now going to start posting this particular journal to the general ledger. And remember, a little bit earlier, I said that in your journals, that's where we have the detail. So here we've now recorded all the detailed transactions, all the cash that we have now received throughout the month. Now at the end of the month, we are now just going to move forward to the general ledger with the totals. So it's important we need to total our cash book, and to double check ourselves, when you add the total of your debtors control column to your output VAT column and your sales column and your sundry receipts, then they must all be, when you add them all together, that's going to equal your bank. Because remember, your bank column, the most important column in this cash book, reflects total cash received. So in total for this month, we received 324,000 rands in cash. How was that cash made up of? It was 15,000 received from debtors, 1,200 rand was output VAT, 8,000 rand was cash sales, and 100,000 rand was capital, and 200,000 rands was the loan. Okay, so we total our cash book, and then you double check yourself and you make sure that all those individual little totals add up to the total of your bank column. Then it's time now, at the end of the month, we need to post this cash book to our general ledger. So what we do is we take our journal and we create one double entry out of the journal. So we are going to create one entry out of everything that happened in this journal for the particular month. And for a cash book receipts, the double entry is going to look like this. We're going to debit the bank account in the general ledger with the total cash received. We're going to credit the debtors, the VAT, the sales, and the capital and the loan account. So that will be our double entry to record total cash received for the month. Your cost of sales column gets its own entry. And that's just going to be, we're going to debit cost of sales and credit inventory. Because remember, again, in this little example we're looking at now, we're dealing with a perpetual inventory. So in the general ledger then, this is what it is going to look like. I think I'm going to just jump ahead here. So this is what the double entry looks like. So there's one debit in the bank account, and then we have 5 different credits, but my total debits equal my total credits. Because remember, again, from learning unit number 2, every transaction consists of at least 2 entries. One of these must be debit and the other must be credit. So we still staying true to our golden rule of accounting. We have at least 2 entries, one of them a debit and one of them a credit. So if we look back here, we see yes, we have at least 2 entries. Yes, we do have a debit, and yes, we have a credit. For the credit side, we just have 5 individual entries, but together they make one double entry. Salama, anything here from your side? Sorry, I haven't given you much opportunity this morning just to add in for our students. Anything from your side that you want to just share with our students?
Hi, Ina. Sorry, I was just responding to some questions. Okay, let me just see. Oh, they're just asking to explain the 6,400. I think I'm just responding to how they wanted to know how you calculated the cost of sales. Maybe please, students, also remember when we calculate cost of sales in the cash book receipts is always on the exclusive sales amount. Exclusive. Okay, exactly how we calculations also in learning unit 3 for your cost price, right? Always on your exclusive sales amount. And of course, then taking your markup percentage into account. I think they weren't sure how you got to the 6,400 here. Ina, that was one of the questions they wanted us, they just needed some further explanation there. So it's all the cost of sales again. As Ina mentioned, if you have a cost of sales column, then you must know that this business is using the perpetual inventory system and they have given you the markup or they've given you whether you should use the markup percentage or the gross margin percentage in order for you to calculate the cost of sales. Right. Ina, did we share markup percentage that I can maybe show them was it the 30% on the selling price? Am I right? So I
For
can
this,
maybe just show
For this one, Salama, that 6,400 is just for example purposes.
example
When I later
purposes.
on do the debtors journal, I'll give you all the opportunity to quickly practice again your markup and gross margin
Perfect.
calculations. So for this slide's purpose, just trust me on the 6,400. That's just there for example purposes. But as Salama said correctly, you will start with your sales number, which is your number excluding that. And then you will use either the markup or the gross margin, depending on the question. But we will practice those little calculations a little bit later this morning.
Okay. Um, okay, Ina, then of course, again, maybe I could just give you a reminder, please, please. Okay, yes, I think one of the students also asked here, Ina, is I think maybe when you add it here, she says the bank total should be 324,200 and not 324,000.
Oops.
Okay.
But are you adding in, student, are you adding in the cost of sales? Because the cost of sales number mustn't be added in. Or
No,
did I make an adding
I
error?
could,
Would,
I think you made an adding
Oh,
error
oops.
there.
Did I make
Yes.
a little
Okay.
adding
For
error?
the
Okay.
bank.
Thank you. Thank you,
Perfect. Yeah.
eagle-eyed student, for picking that up. I'll have to correct the
That up.
slide. So for anyone watching the recording, please then just be aware that it seems like there was an adding error. Let me just add this up quickly. That there was a little bit of an adding error. Yeah, I
Yeah,
can see
I
that
think the
now.
last one,
Yeah.
the cash
Uh,
sales is
yes.
9,200.
Sorry.
Thank
So
you,
the correct,
Annalena, for
thank you. The correct total is then 324,200. Apologies for that. But remember not to add in cost of sales. That is not part of the
yes.
calculation. Okay.
Perfect. And again, Ina, maybe just to the other slide. I think after this you showed them how to post to the ledger. Okay, right. Um, again, yes, more importantly for you to note here that apply your debt leak rule when you're posting to the ledger. And I'm assuming Ina, okay. Did you show them here how to, let me just see. Okay, yes. Okay, debtors control, we posting. So it's debit the bank. Okay, and as Ina has mentioned in the previous slide, the main account is bank. So I always try to tell the students visualize the cash book receipts. And then also, if you're going back to what you did in Learning Unit 2, you know that when you sold goods for cash, the double entry was debit the bank, credit sales. Okay, so always remember that bank will be the main account, so we will be debiting the bank and everything else will be credit besides, of course, for the cost of sales entry. Okay, right, so just remember your debt click rules there for especially for your T accounts in the general ledger.
Thanks, Alama. And then, sorry, students, obviously, when you look at these numbers, particularly if you're listening to the recording later, this is then using those incorrect numbers. It's 324,200 and not 324,000. So just be aware of that. And then, as Alama said, remember your date click, and that brings us back to this key page from Learning Unit 2. So this is one of those other key pages in Learning Unit 2 that's just pure gold. That again just tells you all the different general ledger accounts, are there assets, liabilities, income and expenses, and then whether you need to debit or credit these accounts. So that's another key page in your textbook that you must please just make sure that you are familiar with. Um, Obviously, you studied it for semester test 1, but you need to study it again for semester test number 2. I see we've got to pick up the pace a little bit. So here then is our cash book payments. So again, this is where we're going to be talking about detail. So again, we're looking for names of people. We're looking for document numbers. Again, the bank column is the key column in this particular journal. And so that's going to be the one including that. So it's the total cash paid out. Your inventory column is going to be the one excluding VAT, and that column's name is going to change depending on the inventory system. So it's going to be a purchases column if your business is using periodic inventory, and we're going to call it the inventory column if the business uses perpetual inventory. But remember again, in your textbook, they also give you all of these columns and they tell you exactly what needs to go into each one. Please just remember, particularly maybe if you're using older versions of our textbook or if you are maybe using past papers, just remember, checks are no longer a valid payment form in South Africa. So please don't practice anything with checks. Remember, checks are now mostly replaced by EFT payments. So if you are doing old past papers, or maybe you're using older versions of the textbook, just take out checks and replace it then with EFT payments. So in terms of these source documents and journals, again, we can ask you a theory type question even on journals and source documents. So your journal questions are not just always application questions. So here again in the 2022 test, you can see, for example, they gave the student a list of transactions. The student had to say, well, which journal will the transaction be recorded in? And they also had to say the source document. And when it comes to source documents, you actually even need to know the detail. Is it an original or is it a duplicate that will be used for that particular transaction? So again, please don't underestimate your theory. It can be asked in a standalone question, or of course, you also need it for your application. So again, you can go and try this question later at home, and then you can come back to my slide and you can come and quickly just mark your answer against this slide. And as I said, in these types of questions, we definitely want to also know, is it the original or is it the duplicate? And you should be able to find all of that detail in that page 107 that I showed you earlier. Remember that page 107? I wonder if I can, I won't go back to it now. I think I've got it again a bit later in the slides I'll show you. But remember then that page 107 is then really key, because that then shows you, is it the original or is it the duplicate? Okay, so cash book payments then, typical transactions here will be salaries and wages that's being paid, rent that can be being paid, anything that you buy and pay in cash, particularly inventory, any cash inventory purchases. When we pay creditors, it will come in here. When we repay a bank loan, or any interest that you may have to pay on the loan, that would be typical transactions in the cash book payments. Again, the bank column is the key and most important column. And again, if you want to double check yourself, your creditors, your input VAT, your inventory, and your sundry amounts must add up. And I hope, I'm crossing fingers, this time around it does actually add up to my bank total. Then I just wanted to show you this slide. So this is just, remember when we talk about this VAT column, we said, remember now you're going to check your transaction. Is the amount including VAT, excluding VAT? Is it exempt? Is it zero rated? Is it non-allowable? But there's also a couple of other transactions that also do not have a input or output VAT implication. So things we think about here are cash capital contributions from owners, cash drawings, petty cash, salaries and wages, loans either made or loans received, and then of course your typical learning unit 3, zero rated, exempt and non-allowable items. So just make sure you are aware of items that do not carry VAT. Yes, it can be because they're zero rated or exempt, but there's also other items like when you pay salaries and wages, when you withdraw money for your petty cash. So this little list, you can come back here later. This just gives you some of those items. Okay, then of course we also need to post this cash book to the general ledger. This time around, we're going to credit the bank column because now that is your cash payments. And now you can see we're going to debit all the other accounts. So we're going to debit the creditors, the VAT, the inventory, and the salaries, the rent paid, and the interest on the loan. Remember, for the sundry accounts, there you're going to debit each individual account, where for the accounts with a own column, like the creditors control, the input VAT, and the trading inventory, there we're only going to debit the totals. Okay, so if it has a column, you use the total, but for sundries, you do need to go to the individual accounts. So again, this is my double entry. So this time around, I've only got one credit, but then we have quite a few debits. But it's still one double entry because my total debits are equal to my total credits. Okay, Salama, how's it going there on your end?
Hi, Ina. At the moment, I have no questions. I think I only had a student again asking a question regarding the cost of sales and referring particularly to a revision question 14. Um, but I'm still just trying to find out exactly. I think when you will be doing the debtors, journal with the transactions and how to calculate cost of sales. It might give clarity on the question, because the student is asking how, he says, when he looked at the sales amount for the answer, it was wrong. However, if he first deducts the markup and then the VAT amount from the bank, then let me just see here. Let
Okay,
me
I
just
see the question there. Yes,
Then
we'll
the
have to
answer's
just,
right. Now I'm a
it
bit
could
confused.
be
Yeah,
maybe one of those questions where there was a trade discount, maybe because that does
that's it.
impact the
Yes,
cost of sale, but we'll have a quick look at that then a little bit later when we practice a little bit of our cost of sales calculations.
perfect. And then I just have a question from Nathan. He wants to know, what are we going to have a break, and what time will the
So,
second
uh,
break be, Shane?
so yes, I'm sure everyone's keen. Even I'm keen for the break, but Nathan and everyone else in the class, if you can bear with me a little bit longer, I'm gonna, I think, push on until 11. So in another 10 minutes, and then we'll definitely all have a quick leg stretch, and we can do a quick few star jumps just to get so we just got our energy back up for the last session. So please just bear with me. I'm just going to push on a little bit more. I see I've still actually got a ton of slides that I wanted to just cover with you guys, just to make sure we touch on all the key aspects. So right, let's go forward.
I, maybe what I could maybe also just remind them, when they are doing the general ledger, to please not forget the folio, because we do give marks for that. They need to say where are they recording from. Cash book payments, for example, for this a question now, and in the previous slides they have to say that they are recording from the cash book receipts. And we know from the past that if they do omit these, it's half a marks, but it can count up to more than 2.5 marks in some instances. So very important when they completing the T accounts is to please include the folios.
Oh, yes, that is key. And I think you're reading my mind, Salama, because I'm actually in the next set of slides. I'm also going to just remind them, but I think we can't remind students enough of the importance of showing your folio. It's something so simple, but as Salama said, it all adds up. And it can just make that difference in your marks. So yes, please add in all your folios for the journal from where your transaction is coming. Okay, let's have a look now. We actually, as I said, I think Salama was reading my mind. I think we've been running these sessions together now for a while, so I think we kind of know what's going to come next. So what I wanted to show you a little bit and talk a little bit now was about preparing a general ledger account. And I always like to say we need to break it up into 3 steps so that we can optimize all of our marks when we do a general ledger account, because each one of these 3 steps carries marks. So, and some of them, step 1 and step 3, are actually the kind of easy marks. So you don't want to be losing out and not getting all the marks you possibly can for a question. So step 1 says, if we ask you to do a general ledger account or to post from a journal to the general ledger, your first thing is always put in your opening balance. Okay, how do I know which side to put my opening balance? This is now again, as Alama said earlier, where you're going to use your dead click rule. So we remember assets, expenses, and drawings, opening balances, debit side. Liabilities, income, capital, opening balances, credit side. And I know Salama loves this. Am I right, Salama? I stole this picture actually from one of your slides. Did I get it right here on mine?
Yes, you did, Ina. That's
Because
right.
Salama always likes to add this slide for students, but because unfortunately, in the way that this event is set up, Salama can't do our normal drawings for us on the slides. So that's why I've had to incorporate it in a slide. So remember then your assets, expenses, drawings, they increase there on the debit side, they decrease on the credit side, and then liabilities, income, and capital, they work the other way around. Okay, so you can either use your dead click in the format of T accounts or, oops, otherwise you can just set it out like that. Okay, right. So as I said then, first thing is put in your opening balance. That already carries a mark, even as much as a mark sometimes, or sometimes a half a mark. So easy mark to get, because we have to give you the opening balance in the question. Your job is just to get it on the right side of the account. Step 2, this is now where it gets a little bit more tricky. This is now where you're going to take the journals, either the ones we've given you or the ones you've just had to prepare, and you're going to post it to your general ledger account. And again, you use your dead click, because again, this is going to help you now to know, do I now put this entry on the debit or the credit side of that general ledger account? Okay, or if you like it in the T accounts, you're going to do it like this. Okay, so for example, I'm going to use inventory again, because we spoke about inventory a little bit earlier this morning when we looked at our 2 inventory systems. So we put in the opening balance of inventory, and say now we bought some inventory on cash. Then we're going to put it on the debit side, because it's now going to increase my inventory balance. Remember, in the general ledger, when I talk details, I'm looking for a general ledger account name, and I'm looking for the contra entry. So with other words, tell me which general ledger account will I find the credit side of this entry. Okay, so your details must be a general ledger account name, and it must tell me where's the other side. So the other side of this entry is sitting in the bank, because it was a cash purchase. Then, as Alama said, please don't forget these folios. And remember, a folio is a journal abbreviation. So this particular transaction was in cash book payments. So my folio is CBP. Okay, and as Salama said, this carries marks. Again, easy marks. Details carry marks, folio carries marks. And then, of course, these amounts, you're going to use your total from your journal, except the general journal. That's the only one where we don't work with the totals. But in your cash books, you're definitely going to use your journal total. With other words, what we mean is we don't want to see you writing each individual cash purchase in this account. We just want to know in total, they bought inventory for 300,000 rands. We want to know the total cash purchases. Okay, then just for completeness, I've put a cost of sales entry there on the credit side as well. You can see I've got my details, my folio, my amount. And then step 3, and hang in there, students. This is the last step before we have the break. Step 3 says balance the account. Okay, and remember I said steps 1 and 3 are your easy steps, and those are the ones where you can get easy marks. So step 3 again is easy marks. You're going to balance the account. How do we balance an account again? You add up the entries on the biggest side. So for inventory, it's the debit side. Then you take that exact total, the 35000, and you write it on the opposite side. Then you subtract the small side from the big one. So for this inventory account, the credit side is the smaller of the two, and I'm going to subtract that 256,000 from the total, the 354,000, and that then gives me the balance carried down for that particular month. And then the last step, and this one students often forget, and then it costs them a mark, is also to remember to bring down that same balance to be the opening balance at the start of the next month. Okay, so that then is your opening balance at the beginning of the next month. And both the balance carried down and the balance brought down, both of those carry marks. So please remember to put them both in. In your textbook again, you can look at learning unit number 4, points 4.4.2. And there we discuss with you the rules of balancing general ledger accounts. So if you need a bit more revision on it, then please go and look in your textbook. As I said, that textbook is bumper packed with good stuff. So please go and have a look at these pages. Right, we're going to break now for our little comfort break and something to drink. And while we break, I'm going to give you a little bit of homework. Okay, so while we're in the break, I just want to give you a little bit of homework. We'll discuss it when we come back from the break. So during our break, please see so long can you balance this bank account. So see if you can work out the balance for this account, and then we'll see each other back. If we can see each other in 10 minutes time, please. So if we can all be back here at 10 past 11. Please remember to sign the register if you haven't done so yet. And we'll see each other in 10 minutes. Salama, any last comments for our students before we have our comfort break?
Hi, Ina. Maybe I could just again remind the students to please, for the test, read the instructions carefully. I think I had a question from one of the students now is regarding opening balances. How will they know or will they that there is an opening balance? I said it will be provided in the question on the test. They just need to read the instructions carefully for the specific question. Okay, so please do read the instructions carefully. For example, the opening balance for this account now that you actually shared there and the one in the previous slide, Ina, those opening balances we will give to you. You just need to remember the debt click rule as to where to record it on the debit side, if it's an asset or if it's an expense again on the debit side. If it's a liability, you need to know that that opening balance needs to go to the credit side. Okay. Thank you, Ina. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Salama. Okay, so your homework, your break work is up on the slide at the moment. We'll join each other back here in the venue at 10 minutes past 11. Thank you, everyone.